Over in Amazing Spider-Man's core series, a massive territorial dispute has evolved into the ever-arcing gang war. In fact, the gang war has ravaged titles across New York City, even introducing comic books with Mary Jane and Spider-Woman in the mix. But today, we're going to go ahead and analyze Amazing Spider-Man issue 42 to see if Peter Parker is able to put a stop to one of the biggest fights across New York. But before we get deeper into the video, want to encourage you to consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like button over on this video. Gang war continues. The Beetle has stepped up in her father's absence, and she's become a very different Janice Lincoln. She's smart, dangerous, and ready to take the big chair. With Spider-Man and the others distracted by Kingpin, she might just do it. Amazing Spider-Man issue 42 is written over from Zeb Wells, featuring artwork from John Romita Jr. The inks in the issue are from Scott Hanna. We have colors from Marcio Menyz and letters from VC's Joe Caramagna. In addition, the cover is illustrated by John Romita Jr., Scott Hanna, and Marcio Menyz. Really appreciate how this issue of The Amazing Spider-Man is really introducing Janice Lincoln as the Beetle. Readers have followed Janice through so much of this core modern run of Amazing Spider-Man that it's so interesting and tragic to see Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr. recontextualize her as this incredibly dark, villainous character. I want to extend a quick thank you to Adventures in Poor Taste and focus in on some of the excellent artwork coming in from John Romita Jr. I've really thought that the Amazing Spider-Man's Gang War storyline has created a really tense set of pencils and scenarios for John Romita Jr. to really explore some of what plays to his strengths as a creator. I really think the tense facial expressions and the violent blood draped across Wilson Fisk's face is just a great way to utilize some of his strengths as just a fantastic artist over in the Marvel Universe. I also found it really tense how Zeb Wells opened Amazing Spider-Man 42 by detailing the very final moments of the all-out war that kicked off between Tombstone and Wilson Fisk as they fought for basically the safety of their children in the midst of this storyline here. I'm also impressed with all of the subplots that Zeb Wells is utilizing across this storyline, even though it feels like the main thrust of this issue is focusing on the aftermath of the fight between Tombstone and Kingpin. There's also a lot of really fantastic context here where we get to see some of the aftermath between the Rose and Janice's battle that ended over in the last installment here. The character of Madame Mask seemingly gets more interesting as each issue of Amazing Spider-Man is published. This issue actually creates a really interesting dynamic between her and the relationship with the character of Shotgun, who also had a really pivotal moment in the core Amazing Spider-Man series. I also thought that some of the dialogue and the way that both Madame Mask and Janice Lincoln unveiled some of their backstories in the tense scene before their final confrontation was another just really spectacular moment, punctuated really nicely here from Zeb Wells. Once again, the really strong attention to detail with the supporting cast has really made Gang War really strong. And I just love how really slowly and carefully that Wells has been brewing the subplot over with Madame Mask in order to really punctuate and bring out so many elements of it towards the very end of Amazing Spider-Man issue 42. I also thought it was really interesting how Janice Lincoln's, accommodations or people she's working with changes within the course of this issue as the character of Digger seemingly reluctantly joins her forces as well. It was also just so cool to see some of the last couple pages with Janice against Madame Mask. The way that they've really built out their character relationships and have assembled such an interesting team of heroes on both sides has showed just how carefully Zeb Wells has plotted all the ancillary characters in the lead up to this massive gang war storyline. So at the end of the day, I am just really impressed with Amazing Spider-Man issue 42. I feel like this issue found a really interesting way to continue the gang war in just a slightly different context, with Janice Lincoln as well as Madame Mask now serving as some of the major protagonists over for the event storyline. I want to know from you, how do you feel about the way that Zeb Wells is managing this awesome cast of characters over in Spider-Man 42. What are some of your thoughts on the really slow and subtle ways that Madame Mask has been assembling her army of characters? Thank you so much for coming to check out our video review over on Amazing Spider-Man issue 42, and we'll be back to see wherever this series is headed just in time for what's next beyond the Gang War. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon. Bye.